What's up, guys? Okay, I'm trying something new here. So I'm going to see if I can see who is here. I'm doing this through Google Hangouts tonight. So it's a little bit different here. Let's see what we can figure out. I'm going to try this. Okay. Official Dumo, what's up, man? How are you? Glad that you're here. I'm trying two things here, so you kind of have to forgive me. I can't really. Give me a second here. Give me a second. Okay. Cool. Got. All right. So let me know that you're in the chat. I am checking this out right now. I'm also pulling up some of the stuff here. So today I'm doing stuff a little bit different than I have in the past. First of all, happy 2019. I'm pumped that you guys are here with me tonight on our first Tuesday Night Live. We've got tonight's beer is brought to you by Schlafly. It's the Schlafly Hefeweizen that I'm working with here. Tonight we're talking about goal setting, and we're just getting deeper, a little deeper into some of this stuff. I did a live stream about. Actually, hold on. So I'm gonna be live streaming here on. I'm gonna be live streaming on Instagram as well. I'm gonna be trying that. Let me see here. Okay, so kind of letting everything boot up here, so I apologize. So today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm recording this for a podcast, so this mic whatever you're hearing has nothing to do with this microphone, which is classic to me. But we're going to dig deeper into some goals tonight, and then we're going to talk about actually tracking your progress and understanding a little better, just when you're setting up these goals, what can you do to actually track your process a little better? Because there's a lot of things that people talk about as far as, especially with social media. There's things that people talk about with vanity metrics, followers, all these kinds of things that we really get caught up and juiced up in. And then because of that, we kind of lose sight of what's important, which is actually understanding, what our goals are, not what somebody else says our goals should be. And then just how to kind of dig deeper into that. So if you guys have questions as we're getting into it, we're live on Facebook and the YouTubes at the same time. So I'm going to be looking at some folks here. Wayne, what's up, dude? Lauren, what's up? Ryan. So let me pull up my document here and we'll get into it. First of all, I hope everybody's had a good new year thus far. We got to have a really long vacation with the family, which was awesome. And so now I'm just kind of getting back into all of this stuff, just everything. So it's been really, really cool to jump back online and get to into this stuff. Okay, I'm done fumbling. All right, so I listened to a podcast that really changed everything. If you watched my goal setting video that I posted before the end of the year, then you would have saw just kind of my initial plan for setting goals. And then I posted something about on YouTube yesterday, a video of me and that was filmed last week, going over my goals. And then over the course of this week, I actually listened to a goal setting podcast that blew my mind, and it's by this gal named Sunny Lenarduzzi, who's a YouTuber that I follow. And what she says is really simplified as far as And I think this applies to really anything, but what she says is really is simplified into more of a 3-month structure. So the way she talks about it is you actually write a letter to yourself, and you write it once every 3 months, and you talk about it. And this can maybe seem a little heady to people, but for me, this processed really well. And I think for those of you that are creatives, like, this is gonna hit some of you. But the way that you do this is you set up sort of these prompt questions, and then you go through the prompts, and then you write yourself a letter basically to yourself 3 months from now. So you know, Lennon, dear Lennon, blah, blah, blah. This has been the best 3 months in my business. This has been best 3 months in my music because I've done this, I've accomplished this, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're going to go through some of that. And I wanted to just make sure that I gave Sunny the props for that, because this really changed a lot for me. And I thought it was really cool. So if you don't know about Sunny, you should go check out her information. And once the live stream is done on the YouTube, I'll have her linked. And but it's just Sunny Lenarduzzi. You can check her out there. So I have set this up more for musicians here. And so it's called the 90-day letter. And there's a quote that I found by a guy named Brian Tracy. It says, "Every minute that you spend planning gives you 10 minutes in execution. This gives you 1,000% return on energy." 1,000% return just because you're doing planning. And as creatives, we don't think about planning. We don't think about these kinds of things because it's not like the cool thing to do. The idea of planning really just, you know, it takes away the romance of creativity and writing and doing all these things. And I think there's a time and a place for both, because especially me being more of a creative person, I've dealt a lot lately with kind of the reverse of that. So I've been doing so much planning the last 2 weeks that I haven't got to do the creative side yet. And what I'm seeing is that now when I dig into the creative, I'm going to be able to be fully immersed in that. And my productivity should be a lot deeper, which I'm excited about. So let's dig into this letter here. So here are the prompt questions. Or I'm sorry, the first question is, you want to ask, if you could achieve one thing with your music in the next 90 days, what would it be? So if you have a pen and paper, you may want to write these down. If you could achieve one thing with your music in the next 90 days, what would it be? How do you want your personal relationships and your music network to improve in the next 90 days? And what aspects of your lifestyle do you also want to improve in the next 90 days? Okay, I'll go over those again. If you could achieve one thing with your music in the next 90 days, what would it be? How do you want your personal relationships and your network to improve in the next 90 days? And what aspects of your lifestyle do you want to improve in the next 90 days? So think about those questions. You can write these down. And then there are other prompt questions that you'll go through. And those are as follows. How much do you want to increase your income or fan base in the next 90 days? Are there any projects that need to be completed in the next 90 days? What does your perfect day look like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed? What are you desiring more of in your life right now? And how do you want to feel every day? And these, again, as she'll even say it, kind of get a little heady, but I love it because really, as I think most of us as creatives and artists and musicians and all these things, you know, a lot of the stuff that we do is predicated on our feelings. We're driven a lot more by emotions than we are systems. So when we can attach ourselves emotionally to what we want to achieve, and when we can actually visualize the things that we're trying to achieve, we have a lot higher odds of meeting those goals. So again, those prompt questions are, how much do you want to increase your income or fan base in the next 90 days? Are there any projects that need to be completed in the next 90 days? What does your perfect day look like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed? And what are you desiring more of in your life right now? And how do you want to feel every day? So with that, go in and you can take those questions and then write yourself a letter based around those questions. So, For me, it might be, the one thing that I want to achieve is to make more music. So let's say I want to release 3 tunes, and I want to grow my network by, 1 different artist in the next 90 days, and I want to work out more. So I might write something to the effect of, Lennon, it's been the best quarter so far. I've already written 3 tunes. I've got a couple more in the bank. I've been meeting with a lot of new people. I've met a lot of really talented folks, and in turn have improved my network. And currently I've been going to the gym 3 days a week, so whatever that is, right? So then when you're able to see that, you can have this emotional attachment to it. And then Sunny says even to go a level deeper and to read the letter to yourself every day. And I think this is where the real power comes into play, because when you're able to, again, attach yourself to it every day and remind yourself what those goals are, what that's also going to do is, if you have something that's going to get in the way of those 90-day goals, you're going to realize that it's about to get in the way, right? So if you have some other job that comes up that may pay a little bit of money, but on the back end is going to take you really away from a lot of the stuff you want to do, then, every day that you're looking at those 90-day goals, you're going to be reminded, okay, well, maybe it's not time to do this thing. Maybe it's time to work on something else, right? So I think that's a great way to dig into your 90-day kind of goal strategy. It's really applicable, really simple, super clean, and that's something that I haven't done yet, but am definitely planning on doing here in the next couple of days. I've just been so deep in all the other stuff that I haven't had a chance to. So this break is brought to you by Schlafly. Not really. They didn't pay me anything. The Ginger, I play guitar and write music. Yeah, okay, we're going to get into questions. So since this is kind of a podcast format as well, and I'm going to be releasing this in podcast form, I'll be taking questions at the end. So please put them in the chat, and then we'll go through those once I get through the rest of this content. So now we've set our goals, got our 90-day goals in place. Maybe you've already got some goals in place, and the 90-day goals just isn't even a thing you need to worry about. That's fine. How do you know if you're making progress? And I've actually had quite a few people in our private Facebook group, and if you're not involved in that yet, you really should be. I think there's a lot of value there. I talk about it every live stream, but we're just now getting going again, and I haven't been in there poking around as much. But I think that the more people that we can get in there really encouraging each other, just the better that the community is going to grow, and the more that we're going to grow as individuals. But I had some people ask, how do we know if we're making progress? And this was related to a 14-day Instagram growth strategy that we worked on. And so I came up with a few just simple things that I think you should be tracking to make sure that you understand where your growth is coming from. Number one, you cannot know what your growth is. You can't understand how you're growing unless you really understand what your goals are, right? So if you don't have your goals written down so that you can be revisiting those often, then there's no way you're actually going to be able to track what the growth is. So, for instance, if you're trying to just get more followers, or you're trying to just get more engagement, but you're not actually tracking where you started, where you've ended up between certain amounts of time, if you're not actually knowing where you're trying to get to, then it can just feel like you're constantly spinning your wheels. And I'll actually get out my bullet journal here to kind of show you also sort of what I've been working on as far as just tracking some of my metrics. And this has been something that I just implemented, so there's really not much to it yet. But for me, content creation is obviously a big part of it. And as I'm trying to, build this side of the business, then the metrics that I get on YouTube are super important, right? So here you can kind of see that I have just a grid that's laid out. And then under these, I have my subscriber count. I have views, I have audience retention, I have watch time, I have Instagram followers, my story metrics. So I'm going into like, you know, how many impressions I'm getting on my stories. I have the Facebook group, how many people are in there, and then also the email list, how many people are on there. And so I'm tracking these things because I know these to me are the most important things to be able to follow over and over. So that's kind of what I keep looking at. And if you're trying to do, you know, like YouTube, then audience retention and watch time are a big deal. So I have to make sure that I'm tracking that stuff. So once you kind of have all that mapped out as far as your goals are concerned, then you want to make sure that you are following your competitors. Okay, so understand who your actual competitors are. So maybe you do, you know, you're a folk singer songwriter, you're doing that kind of thing, or you're doing trap music. It doesn't matter what it is. Who are your competitors? Who are your influencers? Understand and follow your competitors and emulate your influencers. And what that's going to do is give you opportunity to really see what works for them. And I think in a lot of these categories, you know, especially when it comes to promotion, putting our stuff out there, we feel like we need, in the same way that we need to create music that's completely original and all our own, which, you know, in my personal opinion, doesn't even really exist. You know, all we are is a byproduct of all of our experiences and the things that we've taken in. So, you know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to having a good Instagram account or having a good YouTube channel or having, you know, whatever promotional materials that you're trying to put out. So when you can follow your competitors and emulate those that you are influenced by, that can make a big difference in allowing you to know sort of where to go next. And something I've been doing a ton this year that has been, and even the last month of 2018, that's been really telling, and it's just freaking brutal, is I've been tracking all my hours. I'm using an app called Clockify. I think it's clockify.me. And one of my mentors, Tim Schmoyer, talked about it. And so you can get it as an app on the phone. You can also just use it, clockify.me, on your browser. And then you can categorize what you're working on, and then subcategorize those as well. Then it breaks it down into a graph so you can see where you're spending the majority of your time. And then what I learned in the harshest way is, you know, the time that I spend in the studio, you know, they'll go between an hour and 3 hours a day that are just missing. And not so much now, but, you know, when I was first starting this, I was like, holy crap, there's like 2 hours here that I don't even know what happened. And so being able to track that made a huge, huge difference. So tracking your time, that allows you to kind of see where you need to go next, where you're losing time, where you can start to make up some other time. And then social media and web statistics. So all of us, I'm assuming, are really trying to do better with our social medias, or we wouldn't be here on this live stream, on this podcast. And so a couple things that you can do. One, there's I want to give you a quick breakdown of Instagram, what you can do with that. There are tons of metrics within the business profile account that you can use. So if you set your account up as a business, excuse me, you can go in and see so many different metrics within that. You can then subcategorize, like, okay, I want in the last 7 days, which posts got the most traffic to my website, or I want to know which posts got the most impressions, or I want to know which videos or which photos got the most whatever. And I'll do a breakdown of how to use that within a YouTube video coming up. But just dig into that stuff and take a look at it, because there is so much power in understanding the analytics there. And then with YouTube, if you're doing a YouTube account, it's the same thing. And as I said before, audience retention and watch time, as well as your click-through rates, are huge. So understanding and digging into that can be really, really powerful as well. Also, I would be starting every month with knowing exactly on any of these platforms what your vanity metrics are. So, you know, how many followers you have, how many average impressions you're getting on a photo, some of those kind of things. I would be checking your Spotify stream count. I'd just be knowing, like, kind of where where your streams are coming from, if that's possible. Also, just understanding how many you're getting on average, whenever you release a new track. The same on your SoundCloud account. So what's happening in your SoundCloud? How many streams are you getting within the first 24 hours on these platforms as well? And that can just be interesting analytics to understand, so that maybe you can just take some of that information and understand better, okay, well, this is what I did for that release. This is how I released that track. This is how I put out that information, and I got this return from my audience. So what could I do different? And you can just start to A/B test some of the practical side of your promotions. Just a quick side point on that: strong growth on your vanity metrics is anything over 5% increase over a month, and 7% or above is fantastic. And I want you guys to remember that vanity, or like the engagement, is way more important than the vanity metric. The engagement is way more important than your follower count. So who's engaging? And engagement can be anything from impressions, views, likes, comments, all those things. So you want to make sure that you're really tapping into that. So that's some of my stuff. That's what I got. If you have questions about any of it, I would love to go through some of that. So I'm watching here in the comments now. Let's see. The Ginger: I play guitar and write music. My current goal is to significantly improve in production quality in my songs. Sorry if this is off topic, but what are your thoughts on metal music? Well, I think metal music is fine. I would just be curious what kind of thoughts you're wanting from me specifically. So if you're wanting to improve your production quality, that's pretty universal. You just need to do more production. You need to find a mentor, somebody that you can really approach, that's going to give you actual feedback. The hardest thing you can get is actual feedback. You need to have a community of people that's willing to give you the harsh feedback, give you the stuff that's just not actually working right. So hopefully that helps. Adrian Hughes: what's this stream about? Please tell me how to get in the music biz. You think you can be my manager? Hello. Adrian, I probably cannot be your manager. No, I'm managing myself currently. And how do you get in the music biz? Well, you just get started. If you want to be more specific on some things that you're having struggles with, I'd be happy to help. Yeah. So any other questions as we get into this part of the thing? Let's see. What's the video called where Sunny talked about the 90-day method? It's actually part of her podcast, and that's called The Sunny Show. So I'll be linking that in the video description and in my own podcast description. So I'll be linking that in the video description and the podcast description here, so you can check that out. And that podcast is absolutely incredible when it comes to just business tactics and things in general. And I've said it plenty of times, but I think as creatives, as artists and musicians, we should be taking more from the entrepreneurial world. We should be looking more at those people because they're doing something that's working. When we can start to have that sort of mindset and keep the creative and that side processing the way that it needs to be to make the music and the art that we want to make, and then we can actually take our business side and be creative with that. I think using very tactical information, I think that's really important. The Ginger: thanks for the production info. I agree. Honest feedback is often very difficult to know whether or not you're actually getting. I always make sure to tell people to be as honest as possible. Yes. And Ginger, if you're not in our Facebook group, go to Facebook and search for the Sound and Patterns Facebook group. There's people in there that are giving feedback on other people's productions on the daily. So you should maybe check that out. That's a good place to start as far as building a community. When listening to my music, just some opinions on metal music itself. Like, do you enjoy listening to it or appreciate anything about it from a musical standpoint? I don't listen to metal music, but I do have, I had a lot of friends that were in like hardcore bands and a couple drummers that were in these hardcore and metal bands, and those dudes were lights out good. So that, I mean, I definitely have a huge respect for that style. There's really, there's not a style that I don't respect. There might be things that just aren't my bag as far as like listening to on the daily, but yeah, but I think music is music. That's what makes it awesome, is because everybody has an opportunity to reach somebody. Fuchsia, hey man, love your videos. Thank you so much. I appreciate that a ton. So glad that you're here. Appreciate that. So we got one person on the Instagram watching. I'm not sure who's here on Insta right now. Let's see. Okay, can you repeat those 3 questions and 3 bullet points you talked about earlier, the ones you mentioned when talking about the letter to yourself? Sure. Hi, Jen. My friend Jen is on our Instagram chat. Hi, Jen. Let me know how this is going. I want to know what you think. So the 3 questions. If you could achieve one thing with your music in the next 90 days, what would it be? How do you want your personal relationships and networks to improve in the next 90 days? And what aspects of your lifestyle do you want to improve in the next 90 days? And this will be replayable for a little while. I usually pull the live streams down and limit them just to the private Facebook group. But since I'll be doing the podcast, it'll be available on there as well. How do you show your voice to like Mac people? Like biz, like Mac them understand. Oh, like make them understand. Oh, how do you show your voice to like make people know you mean business, like make them understand? Okay, Adrian, I'm not quite sure what you mean. The best thing that you can do, and what you have to understand, is that the current climate of this industry in general, the thing that everybody complains about, and I personally see it as a benefit, is that everybody complains that the market is too saturated, that there's just opportunity after, well, I shouldn't say opportunity, people don't think that, but there's just people putting junk out over and over and over, blah, blah, blah. And I don't disagree with that. But the reason I see that as a positive is because, there's only a small percentage that are doing it not only at a high level, but they're doing it very, very consistently. And then on top of that, they know exactly the message that they're trying to communicate, and they're putting that out into the world, and they're connecting with people. They're reminding themselves that with everything they put out, social media gets all this bad rap from musicians, but you have to remind yourself that behind, like I know that right now behind the screen, who I'm looking at, there are people, you are people reading and watching and listening to this. And that is huge to me, right? So when you can remember that and figure out how to connect with those people in a real way with your music, that's what's going to make them understand. So you just have to be, really clear in what you stand for. You have to be really clear in what your music is about and what you're trying to do. And then you just have to be really consistent. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Jen says, it's awesome. My goal is to get 3 hours of music for new pop alt country cover band to start gigging by summer. That is super cool. I love that. And for all of those that are watching, if you're capable or able to do some sort of cover gig to make a little extra cash, a lot of people look down on it because it doesn't necessarily, if you're romanticizing what you're doing, then it can feel like that's sort of like degrading the process. But there is so much to be learned from other people's music. Think about the way that a lot of the jazz artists from the time were doing it. They were literally covering other people's songs. They were using other people's music to create their own and to really learn the art form. I mean, I think that there's super, super value in that. So that's really cool, Jen. So if you're able to do that, I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to dig into, and a great way to make some money. There's some real money in that. And unfortunately, there's money in doing other people's songs kind of more than your own on the top end. But again, I think, there's some real ways to connect to people now, deeper than we ever have been able to. Jen says, I want to write more too, but cover bands can be fun. Absolutely. Jen, I'm the same. All the stuff I'm doing lately is like cover or gigs for hire. So I'm right there with you. So, but this year is all about trying to write more music. So let's see. And that's as far as a playing standpoint. Production has been cool and different, but I'm not writing all that stuff. Let's see. Ralph, how do you set your priorities when working on the goals you have set? Well, my priorities shift. You know, kind of, and that's kind of the point, I think, of this whole 3-month idea is, you know, when you're able to segment your priorities, then just the more that we work, we're going to realize what's working and what's not. So I talk about in the video I released yesterday, you know, what can you start, what can you stop, and what can you continue? Like, that's a great way to sort of continue to move forward. And so for me, I'm going to have a start, stop, and continue 1 or 2 of those every month. So January, February, March, I'll have one of those. And I think that can really help me just maintain focus and understand where priorities need to shift. But you got to try things. So, you know, I'm looking for, number one, what's going to have the biggest impact on my business, what's going to have the biggest impact on my output, and what's going to have the biggest impact on my creativity as far as music is concerned. And I'm gonna really put a lot of emphasis there first. And then I'm thinking about, okay, obviously for me, monetization on the YouTube side isn't a thing yet, but I'm working on that. So that will shift into a priority later on. You know, so there's just different things that I'm kind of shifting back and forth through. So those 3 are kind of at the head of the pack right now. The Ginger, why the 90-day criteria specifically for those criteria you were laying out earlier? 90 days is just it's a good amount of time to actually be able to meet goals. One, you know, it's also kind of on the quarterly basis. So a lot of people set up quarterly goals, and so with that, it kind of plays into that, but without having to think of it on so much of a business mindset. It can come more from just a creative mindset, which I think is really cool. And it just keeps things a lot simpler, and we don't get caught up in, okay, well, I haven't reached my North Star goal yet, which I think you should all have a North Star goal, one that's way bigger than you think you could ever achieve, but just going for it. But if you haven't achieved that yet, this allows you to have real achievements, and you can see progress right away. And that's so important in not getting burned out. And that's something that we always deal with as creatives, is when we're really outputting a lot of content, we're outputting a lot of material, then we can easily get burned out. So, you know, seeing that we're really hitting our goals, I think, is so important. So the Ginger, I hope that helps, man. Any other questions about anything else here? It is time for a drink. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Great. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into the live stream. If you've got some value here on the YouTubes, hit that thumbs up button. If you're on the Instagrams, you can give a little heart or whatever happens. But those thumbs up definitely make a big difference, especially on YouTube. For me, it allows me to have just to get this stuff out there more. So it means a whole lot that you guys are here. Thank you so much. You can check this out. I'm going to be releasing this. You can check this out. I'm going to be releasing this as a podcast every Thursday. So I'll be doing these tapings on Tuesday and refining all this stuff. So this is a learning curve for me, but I'm just trying to get more stuff out there this year. If you're on YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram at Sound and Patterns. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow me on YouTube at Sound and Patterns. So come check it out. Be a part of our Facebook community. Jen, the Facebook page, if you just search for Sound and Patterns on Facebook, you should find it. And then if you don't, just hit me up in a message and I'll get it directly to you. And for those of you watching on the YouTubes, I'll put a link here in the description to make sure you guys have that. And those of you listening on the podcast, I'll put a link to our Facebook group in the description below as well. Thanks so guys for watching and for listening and for all those things. And I'll see you guys next time.